Good evening. This is the continuation of the Unit Preservation Committee public hearing for February 6, 2025. We are in Town Hall Conference Room B, and it is also being broadcast via Zoom and via YouTube. If you're on YouTube now and you're looking to connect to the actual Zoom stream, the easiest way is to go to the town's website, Northborough Town, look under boards and committees, select Community Preservation Committee, scroll down till you see the agenda and click on it, and that has the link to the Zoom. Just so you know. We have a quorum of 5 members. If you could call your name when I announce it so that we have a roll call. Sean Durkin?
Here.
Millie Milton?
Here.
Peter Martin?
Here.
Leslie Harrison? Here. And John Campbell, I am here. We're joined by Lori Connors, our town planner. Thank you. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is review of minutes, and I would like to ask members, just rather than the cursory, yeah, I read it and I agree, please use the minutes to remember the meeting of January 2nd. And could you please come forth if you have questions or notes of memory from the major items when we discussed the basically the 4 applications before us. And then I want to use that as talking points to discuss the big picture tonight. So then we'll go at once. All right, sorry about that. Something I want us to take into consideration is when we had the presentation from the Housing Authority, thank you, on the affordable housing project on Village Drive. Very thorough presentation, and at the end, there's a note in the minutes that I suggested to the applicant, not to mention the board, that we might consider approving a contingency amount on the amount requested, just because of the way things go. And if we felt our overall budget could support it, we talked about 10% or something in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And the notes reflect what I remember is that we had a lot of head nodding and general consensus. That seemed like a good idea. So that being the case, when we get to the point of discussing the number, if we could remember to come to agreement, if it's going to be 10%, it's going to be 880, or it's going to be a round number of 900, something like that. Let's put that into our mix. Okay. Sure. So that was my turn. Leslie told me I had it all memorized, so.
I knew I walked into something here. I meant to bring my staff and then left it behind.
You of all people should remember the item in the minutes that referenced me.
I have nothing to say about it.
Well, speaking to Leslie, you made mention during the discussion of the Conservation Fund application, which is currently requesting $200,000 to the Conservation Fund, that if our budget supported it, why not increase it? And we suggested increasing it to $500,000. So my note to myself was not to forget to bring that up once again. And then looking at the big picture.
What's the conservation commission? That was it?
Yeah.
Conservation Fund, yeah.
Not the conservation fund.
Whether we had the means to raise it to a much larger number.
I've been doing it sort of.
Oh,
go through the
I
others
see.
and sort of see where we stand.
Right.
Yeah.
So I made my own note to not forget about it.
Thank you. See, I didn't want to steal your thunder by not.
That's fine. Next time, come better prepared.
We're on Zoom. I'm humiliated.
Well, yeah, baby. And anyone else? This is going really well.
Was there any discussion about whether funds could be moved into other buckets later that Todd Elflake had brought up? we talk about that one?
Like, what do you remember?
Preference for conservation projects, but raised concerns about putting funds in other buckets that could.
Right, that was the.
Yeah, so his point was, as we have done historically,
Yeah,
considering, do we put it in one column or do we leave it unreserved? Do we leave some of our savings unreserved
yeah.
to give us more flexibility because he was looking forward to what the next big thing might be?
Mhm.
Speaking to the White Cliffs question.
So it's more than just a bucket question though, because the conservation fund, we don't have to go back to town meeting for, that's pre-allocated, so that gives us the ability to act quickly,
Okay,
which especially with land purchase and things like that.
Okay, that's cool.
That's
Yeah.
Good point. However, it is still in that part.
if it's unreserved.
What I mean is, once it's moved into open space reserve through the conservation fund, we could not pull it back from conservation to use for any other purpose.
Correct, but if we don't,
That was Todd's.
right.
right, and that was his, okay, that's what I want to make sure that's.
But if it's not there, your point is, we don't have the same flexibility
Exactly.
in using it for land, which we have done successfully,
Okay,
as is the case for approving any money whatsoever
Yeah.
for our conservation.
Right.
Good points.
The land acquisition tends to be more time critical
Yeah.
than other types of projects.
Sure.
other, yeah, applicants, yeah,
Now we're doing that.
okay.
You're happy.
Yeah, by the way, I don't see any error. I don't see any errors in the minutes, but we are bringing the points up as I had hoped. And then the only other point which we will bring forth, during last meeting, it was discussed and presented that the application for White Cliffs design study for the restoration and so on needed to be increased for a total of $92,940. We made note of that, and in fact, we are in receipt of a revised application. And that takes into account the environmental surveys that need to be part of the preparation for the proposed removal of the additions. So,
And also, you folks have the letter from the select board that you requested.
Oh,
That arrived yesterday.
Okay,
And
very
it
good.
is in your pack.
And Mitch is here.
let's come to that.
And Mitch is.
Hello, Mitch.
Here.
Thank you for going. Did everyone?
Hey, everyone.
Yeah.
And Mitch.
Hi. If anyone has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. If there's nothing, I will turn my camera off.
I've memorized it.
I appreciate you joining us, and I very much appreciate the letter. It was
Great.
wide ranging than I had sought, where you paint the larger picture of what might be, and that's fine. It reflects the discussion of the select board that evening, opening up possibilities, which I think is the right thing to do. The only part that I had wished to see in the letter, or had wished to be remembered, was that one part of what I was asking on behalf of the committee was support for the concept that Lori has in fact laid out in the new application, which is that we want to present to the town. We're only asking for $93,940 should we agree to bring this to town meeting, but we consider this phase one of at least a two-phase project, and that phase two, we've been given an estimate, and if we apply a contingency to that, I want support to present to the town that we might be looking at a number of X, and that that is what we believe is required for the removal of the additions that's part of this restoration, and yet at the same time presenting that should that come to town meeting, we as the Community Preservation Committee can tell you that the funds will be there from CPA.
Great. Yeah, I can certainly say that the select board understands that this is a two-part process. Lori has presented this to us a few different times, with first with the hope of getting some grant funds one year and then follow up the next year. So we're familiar with that. It wasn't specified in the letter that we wrote, but it is certainly part of our understanding of the project, and we're very supportive of that. It is feasible. that sometime in the next year, some good things could happen with White Cliffs if someone comes forward and a project materializes, and maybe we don't need to fund with town funds that second phase, but there's no reason to have that as an expectation.
Understood. And I think for our part, should we agree to move this forward, as I expect we will, we'll start to draft what the bullets, if you will, would be in that kind of presentation between now and town meeting, obviously. And should there be a change for the better in some kind of new direction that obviously changes our approach, then we modify what we present at town meeting, you know. There could be better news.
Yes.
Firm idea.
I keep thinking eventually there will be better news for White Cliffs. And we just keep working on it. You know, as I said at the select board meeting when we discussed this, town meeting approved the funding with CPA funds or CPC funds to acquire White Cliffs and put a historic restriction on it. That I view as a mandate to preserve the building, and we will continue to support that. And I don't see the select board or anybody wavering from that. A question came up, well, what if town meeting doesn't approve this funding at this town meeting? And, you know, then I hope that's not the case. I don't think town meeting has ever declined any CPC request, and that's a great record. I certainly don't hope it. Yeah, I hope it doesn't get broken here. But that would provide, you know, some direction that we may have to think about alternatives. I don't think that's going to happen. This makes a lot of sense. And I hope the town recognizes that this is the town moving this forward rather than sitting there, you know, sitting around twiddling our thumbs waiting for something to happen. That while we're waiting for the good things to happen, we'll continue to improve the building.
I appreciate your support and the clarity there. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks so much.
Very good. So that's an excellent summary of last meeting, and not to mention the discussion before the select board and the support we've gotten from them. And it sets the stage for our meeting tonight. And I believe all members would concur that we can make decisions tonight. Mm-hmm. So having said that, I wanted to present an overarching idea, which is that we really only have 4 applications, not to mention the continuation of the White Cliffs bond and the administrative fund that we typically do. But could you agree with the thought that every application that's been presented before us has been shown to be applicable for CPA funds, meet our criteria, has adequate, if not exceptional, community support, and that each is affordable within what we believe our revenue and reserves to be, as shown in the chart? Would there be a consensus on those points with each application?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, there's that question of whether we want to increase the monies to the conservation fund. So
not the amounts per se, but the applications content themselves.
Yes.
What they're asking for.
Yeah.
No question about their applicability, support, and affordability based on our what the town accountant gave us, the finance manager, excuse me, for both new revenue expectation and the state match that we have in our unreserved funds and remaining unreserved funds. A total of 1.71 million.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So having said that, I wanted to suggest that we could look at the total chart, and what I've written on a whiteboard that the audience can't see is basically a spreadsheet, and yeah, it's pretty small. They might need glasses or might need to walk closer, but nonetheless, it shows the total amounts of each request, and I'll read it out loud real quick. The White Cliffs bond payment this year is required to be $166,575. The administrative fund can be up to 5% of the expected new revenue, which we tend to do every year at the full 5% because unused amounts go back into the unreserved account anyway. And so that's $42,000. The initial conservation fund application was for $200,000. The affordable housing on Village Drive initial application is for $800,000. The Revolutionary War Monument project is requesting $10,758. And the White Cliffs design study for the purpose of removing the additions in total now is $93,940. The total of those fund requests is $1,313,273. So that total is under our total available when you consider the unreserved fund. It is more than our new revenue, which is only $840,000. And let me put it a different way. Between the new revenue and reserves that we have in the affordable housing column, we have 1,119,000 something. Without going into the unreserved fund. It's still not up to 1.3. So that's really my point, is that if we were to approve all articles, we would be eating some unreserved savings, but still leaving some. And so, having said that, I thought we could easily look at what happens if, if we agree that we have applicability and we have affordability, what happens if all of them get approved. We'll have to take individual votes, but it helps us to look at the biggest project. Can we afford the contingency? And we still have extra for that. And then what does that, do to our total? And we can, I didn't bring my laptop down, we can do the math in our heads again. Sometimes that's a problem, but we'll do our best.
Would it make sense to put the discussion of the conservation fund at the end? So that we would, when we're considering increasing that significantly, would know how much money we have to play with.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Because I think to that point in the conservation fund, I'm trying to show that we need something like 200,000 out of our reserve fund as it stands at the moment. If we increase the affordable housing project by the contingency, we're looking at needing close to 300,000 out of the unreserved fund, which has 590 in it currently. So let's say we'd be in round numbers, we'd be down to around 300,000 in the unreserved fund. So to go to a higher number in the conservation fund application, we'd be pulling it all from the unreserved fund. So we'd be weighing the pros and cons of what you just brought up before. Yes, it's great to have more possible flexibility in the conservation fund, but on the other hand, we can't present putting our open space outside, we can't present a immediate need like we had last year for Whitney.
Absolutely. Right. But we are depleted, fairly depleted as well. But we do have 200,000. What is your feeling on that?
We're still working through
Okay.
it. So,
That's not a slam dunk.
DCR told us that we needed to have a survey of the open space piece versus the housing piece. So they agreed to fund the survey. So they hired a surveyor and they're going out this week to start that process. So that's great. So we're still on the path of the 200,000. It's just taking a lot longer than I thought that it would.
But if we assume that will come through, and we have, if we were to get the minimum 200 approved here tonight, that's 400, and there's a balance in the fund of 94. There's a lot of interest from, some good years and some leftover original con fund money. So we're close to 500,000. Not so bad.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to deplete the unreserved. Certainly. Okay.
So let's just say that we've just had our discussion of the application. But to Peter's point, let's postpone the
Yeah,
vote.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. So let's just launch into the biggest one in front of us, which is the affordable housing project. And as I mentioned before, you guys have done a great presentation. I thought the way the budget's prepared and the affordability of it is excellent. So does anyone on the board have remaining question on the application? Pick up, fire it up the boys. Do you have any new information that we feel we should know?
The only thing is that the number of veterans has changed slightly. The last meeting I had mentioned it was 236 for the area veterans, that's up to 245. Again, it's mostly due to the reclassification of the definition of a veteran. The local, which is North Borough, which is the connecting communities, is up to 86 from 62. And the North Borough only is 26. However, we did house 2 of those people. They're in the process of being housed by us. One is actually a family, the other is an individual. So,
But still, over 20 and 80 in the local communities, needing affordable housing. For an agent.
Yeah.
It's sad that it barely makes a dent in it, but they have to start somewhere. So, what do you guys think we should, if we agree that a contingency is a good idea, what do you think we should propose?
I think 10% works.
Bringing it to 80,
Yeah.
Yes,
head nods? Okay.
Yeah, sounds right.
yes.
All right, so let's say that was the case. And we know that we discussed before, and I think we have the blessing that the affordable housing reserves can be placed toward this. Right? So, from 880,
That gives us a balance of $600,137.
600,
600,137.
that we need. Okay.
So just for my own clarity, the reserves we're talking about are the accumulation of 10% set asides from prior years that have been used for anything, but the 500,000 for future NHC projects is not being used towards this project.
That is correct, and it's on our agenda to discuss the reauthorization of those. But based on your presentation, the last 2 meetings, we've separated it in our minds. This is while we know NEHC is involved, the funding of this is not using NEHC's reserves. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So we would need 137 more. So now it comes down to how we take from new revenue and what we, how we, in the end of the day, how we prefer to phrase the warrant articles. I personally like to see the new applications come from new revenue whenever possible. And that, if we have an overage, we do it differently. And I think it might come down to, in this case, using some of the unreserved savings to make the number work for Village Drive. Yeah. And that means finding out what these take otherwise.
It's just one other question I would have would be, out of the new revenue, 10% of the new revenue has to go to affordable housing.
Correct.
So I think the projection was like 840,000 of new revenue, something like that. So that, so 84,000 has to come out of new revenue towards the 600 something you're looking to,
Correct.
and the rest could come from anyone.
There's no doubt that what comes out of that column will be more than 84,000.
Right, but at least at a minimum, 84,000 has to come out of that column.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So actually, down here, we have agreed we want to up the affordable housing with the contingency We now need a total of 1,393. As my co-sponsor
Yes.
on the application. You can see from the numbers that we wouldn't have enough to grant the upgrade to 500,000 without bringing it all from the rest of unreserved funds. And as a committee, we try to leave a decent reserve and unreserved funds.
We don't have any kind of rule of thumb with respect to what percentage of the reserve we dip into it, have we?
I don't think so, but we've benefited from, state match and funds that we didn't need for given years. As an example, the affordable housing project that did not go through 3 years ago, was it? We had planned around it and then ended up with a very large unreserved fund, which went to good use to acquire the Whitney property. And now, or some of it, and then now, here again, because of the way the extra funds come in, the state match kind of comes in. It comes in the November of after the fiscal year. So, no, yes.
So it would be next
So
November.
when a fiscal year ends, for instance, in July 20, June 30, 25, the state matches it in November typically of that year.
Yeah.
And then that ends up going into the unreserved fund. But it's typically been, several hundred thousand, seems. Like, maybe like PJ.
Yeah, generally more than 590.
Yeah.
For the historical information.
Right.
Down again, that's a big cities adopted it, so I thought it went back down again this year.
The state match
Yeah,
amount was lower, and it was only 14, 15%,
yeah, there's some big
and it's true.
participants added.
But the advocates at the Union Preservation Coalition keep lobbying for more resources to be put into the big pot so that there can be more sent out. And, we benefited from the state match a lot, but we agreed as a town way back in the beginning, we thought a 1.5% surcharge was reasonable and affordable and easier for the town to digest, and we haven't had any significant reason to ask to increase that.
Mhm.
But the towns that have a maximum 3% surcharge, they get a bigger 100% match. Giving up some for splitting the middle,
Oh, the
Yeah.
percentage,
from a fiscal
the percentage match
responsibility.
is
Yeah.
higher.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
So
we
you
had,
get,
remember like the first round,
right,
towns that had the first
Right.
full 3% get a full match in the first round, so to speak,
right.
and the leftover gets divvied out. So it was kind of a fiscal middle of the road decision, and I think it's still the right way to be.
Definitely not. I think that would be your first failure if you proposed raising it to 3%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not gonna do that.
That might be hard to sell.
Coming now.
But I was gonna prod you for a motion in regard to the conservation fund.
I thought we were gonna save it for the end, but sure. I move that we allocate $200,000 out of reserve, this comes from reserve?
New revenue.
Oh, new revenue, okay, new revenue for the conservation, for the open space committee. Conservation fund, whatever it's called, sorry.
Say 200 or 300?
Two.
You said 2, okay, that's
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. Motion by Leslie, second by Sean. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. It is a 5-0 decision. So. Our party, go to the board. So we took 200,000 from new revenue. And, that brings us down to 640 remaining in that column. So,
With 431,425
oh, that's,
left
yeah,
over.
I apologize, should we, make our motions with regard to the White Cliffs bond and the admin funds?
Mhm.
I welcome those motions.
I'll, make a motion to approve the current year payment on the, Great Cliffs bond at 166,575,
Second.
From which column?
new revenue.
Second by no.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We got that done. And then, in addition, as we said, we're allowed to allocate up to 5% of the expected new revenue to the admin fund. And so we are proposing 42,000.
So moved.
Second.
That was a cheater way.
Of course. You just have to phrase it properly so we can do it. Okay.
Fair enough.
It's,
Is there a second?
Yes.
Yes, Peter.
Peter? And all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. So now we know that that's the number. Say it was you?
Here, it's 431,425.
Now we're down to that. So, I could ask the patients of the affordable housing community. Do you, anybody object to just moving on to the war monument and the White Cliffs articles and seeing if we have concurrence?
Sure.
So, again, also an excellent presentation and preparation on the Revolutionary War monument and the resource it gives us. Any other questions for the applicant in this guy? No change in the request, right? No. Anyone want to vote on it? What do you think?
Is that coming out of new revenue too?
Sure, that's a great idea.
Right. I move that we appropriate $10,758 for the Revolutionary War Monument out of new revenue.
Second,
Second.
thanks, Sean. All in favor?
Aye.
Nice and easy. Thank you.
Just left.
Excellent. All right, and then, for deciding on how much we need to spend on affordable housing, we have White Cliffs restoration. I do expect we can continue discussion a little bit in the agenda with regard to, what we recommend and how we present, but as far as the applicant, are there any questions on the revised application?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So in the proposal from Capital Environmental of December 10th, 2024, the first thing they list is assessment, removal, and remediation of the leaking 8,000 gallon underground fuel tank. Is that an additional one? Or was that just a mistake on the one that was there and the owner? And
So that was cited as, that was cited in the original report that they had done. But that would not be, part of this project because it's not within the additions.
It's not what,
So this project would assess, the hazardous materials that would be removed as part of the additions. So
is it
that would not occur
just
as
an error
part of
then?
this project.
it's not another tank.
So what they're talking about, is they did an environmental assessment for the entire property. And I provided that to you folks via email. And that was one of the problems that they had cited. So they had identified a number of issues. But that underground storage tank, to my knowledge, has nothing to do with the additions. So my expectation is that that would not be removed at this time. So it's
there is
on
another
here
tank, isn't
because they were identifying the first phase of the work that they had done, which identified these issues.
I'm still confused. Is there another stored underground tank there?
Because there was one before that was already removed.
That was oil, though. That was oil tank, right? That was years
All
ago?
the same, yeah. it's-
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, there was one that was removed. This
Is it-
one, I think that it just is talking about the residue from that tank.
Well,
I'd have
But
to
my
grab the
understanding is the
report.
original owner paid a significant amount of money to
Yeah,
remediate the leaking underground storage tank.
I can go grab the report if you'd like. It's at my desk.
Yeah, 'cause it just, that just troubles me if there's
Yeah,
another
'cause
tank or,
That would not be in the scope
would there
of
have been a
work,
clean
though.
21E when the town purchased the property?
If I understand correctly, they only had to remove it and clean it well enough, solid, not to use it. Which is the difference.
Oh, no, it was, actually worked on the
Okay.
project. It was significant. They called it Northcoast Big Dig. People would come up and look at it. It was
Okay,
DEP. It was a huge amount of material.
okay, so they
In
did a
excess of
full clean, not
15.
just the,
Well, I,
not really solid. I mean, not just the amount they needed to do to sell it.
it was significant.
Okay. That is a great question.
So I'd be shocked if there's another tank.
Yeah, it's misleading, but I think, and Roy might not be totally sure, but for whatever reason, it might be a carryover from, Mr. Berger's document from before. He seems to be listing out, what they were looking at historically as well, because they also provided some services around this previously. And then in the scope of work, it doesn't list it again as we're gonna remove a tank. So I'm not sure why it needs to be in there. Unless he's covering his bases to say,
Yeah,
we need to look again and see if something's left over.
I would just assume that would be taken care of before the purchase.
Hmm.
Because it was pretty significant.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's 4 bullets under the scope of work. The last one being assist the town with preparation of good.
And that would impact.
Collect limited lead and asbestos samples from soil.
If people bidding think there's still a tank there, that would impact a future bid also. If indeed there is one or there isn't one.
Correct. There should have been something to ultimately document the removal of it. The state was involved at that point.
Oh, yeah.
There hasn't been
With DEP inspections, it was,
there hasn't been a final report filed that this tank is gone. Sean's tractor is gone.
there has to be a report.
He's out, he's alive.
I mean, we wouldn't have been able to backfill the hole we dug without it. Without
That
somebody.
guy, I'm thinking of the children's book, Mike Mulligan or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Wasn't that it? He couldn't get out after he dug it.
Dug the hole.
So he turned it into the boiler and he lived in it.
Yeah, I mean, the machine we had, you couldn't see it. You couldn't see the machine. The machine
Very shop.
we had, it was so deep you couldn't see it. I mean, at one point it was 30 feet in the ground. Wow. So I'd be shocked if we didn't get it all. Hope we got it all.
Yeah, it's possible.
Somebody's got a picture of it.
Property.
And anecdotally, I felt bad, the owner, Mr. LaCava, would come there every day and sit in an old chair with his head in his hands, watching the hole get bigger and bigger. Because the only way you do remediation, you actually have an engineer, we call it a sniffer, and they test the dirt as you go.
Yeah,
So it's open-ended. You don't say,
it
oh,
doesn't, you don't smell it anymore.
it's only 400 yards and here's what it's gonna
Yeah.
cost you.
So his head in his hands because the cost kept going up.
Well, it's open-ended, you
Yeah.
just,
I thought he was sad, I thought he was sad about the building.
no, he watched dollars fly out.
Yeah.
I thought it was being sentimental.
No.
In,
Yeah, it wasn't
other
that way.
ways, so.
Yeah.
He was a poor broken man. That's that's any contaminant remediation, you're at the mercy of instruments and experts.
Yeah.
Surgery.
For years too.
Yeah, you always,
Per
you
slice.
don't even argue about it,
Yeah.
you just say, okay.
$2 per slice, is that what you said?
Very lucrative.
Yeah, definitely. Plus it all depends where they have to haul it, the level of contamination. A lot of it they
Yeah, and
bring,
the
there's a
weather
plant in
distance.
New Hampshire. If it's petroleum contaminations, they develop like a giant pizza oven and burn it.
Wow. Burn
Yeah, so the petroleum products are recaptured
Yeah.
and then they screen the dirt and sell
Yeah.
it as, they sell the
Clean bill.
clean fill, gravel, whatever.
Yeah.
it may be.
Sorry, I had to print it all over again because I couldn't find the report. So this is what they have talked about. So I think what they were is that they know there was an underground storage tank, but that's, so you can see what they're talking about as being issues that need to be addressed.
Concerning.
And it doesn't say anything about underground storage.
You would never know, the town recognize that it's gone.
Yeah, I saw another report from 2016 that said that it was removed.
Yeah.
So I think he just has concerns that there was one. an underground
That's kind of what it
storage
says, it's concerns about it.
Just kind of putting it out there that
tank. There may be a problem.
they're aware of it, but then you list the scope of work and it's not called out like we're going to dig anything. Probably just wants to cover his base.
Right.
If something unusual is found, you can go back and say, well,
No stone unturned.
it wasn't
Right.
anything.
Not unwise.
And
Thank you.
So you're, Laura, you're comfortable with their report, you added a contingency to that,
Then
and you had added a contingency to, the consultant's estimate originally, I think, or you were comfortable with their quote?
I was, and I beefed it up a bit more.
Okay. So this is a safe, let's say this, the number can be.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we have to go out to bid. And so, I suspect that we will at least be able to afford these folks. And then there may be other quotes that come in lower or higher.
We're going to have to bid for the services of the architectural,
Yes, we are required to.
but not for the environmental. Their amounts low enough that you can use capital. Or,
The hope is that we might actually find somebody who will provide all of the services needed.
okay,
So we won't need two separate contractors.
you might even save money.
Hmm.
One could hope. I love studies. Necessary step though. Well, are there any other questions of Lori on the application? Anybody comfortable that the amount is known? Only one thing left to do then.
I move that we approve the amount of $93,940 towards White Cliff restoration out of new revenue. So,
I'll second that.
Thank you, Peter. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. So now we get to do the fun part. So Lori, if you mind,
$326,727 remaining.
326. What'd you say, 7?
727.
All right, so we applied new revenue to the Revolutionary Monument. It is approved to go to town meeting. And we approved 93,940. Go to town meeting for White Cliffs. And we approved 200,000 for the conservation fund. It's very nice. We got to pay the debt still on White Cliffs. I believe this is the 8th payment out of 10. And we're left with 327, 727 of new revenue.
I think you got the 200,000 up there twice, so conservation, put it next to the administrative stuff.
That says 42, sorry.
Okay, I thought you were 200,000.
No, bad rating.
Okay. All right.
Yep, trust me. Okay, so I think the math would be, after taking the affordable housing reserve from our new number of 880, we're left with 600,137. And we can apply 326,727 in new revenue. And we can apply 279,863 in affordable housing reserves. What's the number that we,
273,410.
I just gave it a number. Say it again?
273,410.
Unreserved funds. Correct?
Yep.
the numbers that be,
I was saying 278,863 plus 84,000 plus 326,727 is 795,90. Did I right?
I got 880. So I did 326,727
New revenue.
plus 279,863
Yeah.
plus 273,410. 880.
84,000 is buried inside that new revenue.
Yes, it basically, gets a gold star for meeting the minimum of 84K. And, in the open space conservation fund gets the gold star for meeting the minimum of 84K. And, the White Cliffs Restoration also gets a gold star for meeting the minimum of 84K.
So if you want to put this up there, the balance of the unreserved would be 317,557.
317,557.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? And if one of you is comfortable repeating those numbers, a motion could be made to tell us where the funds might come from.
if I get fed the numbers, I can make a motion. I move that we approve the affordable housing request in total of 800,000 plus an $80,000 contingency, out from 326.
$326,727.
$27,000 from new revenue, 2,700.
279,863.
From
The affordable housing reserve.
affordable housing reserve. Group effort here. Yeah.
273,410.
273,410 from the unreserved. For a total of 880.
Nice job.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
This is the funniest CPC meeting I've ever had.
Bring some levity to these things. All right, any discussion of that complicated motion? All in favor?
Aye.
It is approved unanimously. We've done
Go forth and multiply.
Thank you very much.
it. Every year it came down to, what was it, 317, 557, 557. And we still have that money in the bank, which I think makes us comfortable. Very good. Well, I'd like to flip the agenda from what it's in writing, because, the next item was supposed to be consideration to reauthorize prior year NAHB fund, as our attendant Rick Leaf has reminded us. And we happen to have a memo from him, which is going to make it a lot easier. But, as it has happened, at previous town meetings, we have proposed, and the town has voted in the affirmative, to allow funds to the NEHC for affordable housing projects that might happen. And when those funds don't get used in the current year, the agreement is to propose renewing them for another 2-year period, and requiring our vote and the select board's vote. And Rick, as NEHC representative, has helped us understand which amounts need to be renewed. And so,
One clarification, this does not require the select board's vote.
why do you say that?
Because the warrant article is basically written in a way to say that the money would be good for 2 years. It will come up for review by the CPC at the end of the 2-year period. Any project to spend the money would need CPC and select board approval, but the approval to roll the funds forward, it's just the CPC's decision.
Well, fair enough. We're only the CPC, so I'm not gonna argue with it, because that's all we're voting on. But I remember it as the funding agreement required both boards to vote on whether it be an extension or a spend. We can revisit it. I'll assume you're right.
They're always done every year.
So, remaining unspent from 2016 and requesting to be renewed is 23,144.35 cents. And remaining from 2017, 2018, 2019 town meetings is another 350,000. So the motion needs to mention each of those 4 amounts in order to be proper. We're going to take a crack at it.
So move not gonna work.
No.
I'll move the CPC approve further extension of the following amounts. $23,144.35 from the 2016 approval. $100,000 that's approved in 2017. $100,000 is approved in 2018. $150,000 is approved in 2019 for a total of $373,144.35.
Second.
Thank you, Peter. Well done. And Leslie for the second. Make notes on
It's my
Motions.
copy.
the motions in the second. Jeff,
Yeah, and you can check.
for the recording.
Yeah.
Because I start to and lost track. Very good. Any questions on the motion? All in favor then?
All right.
Very good, approved.
Thank you again.
Got it all.
I came up with a project to spend that money at some point. We thought we had one this year, but no, we didn't, but we keep working on
Yeah, I know that was frustrating, but, I think, your, shall I say, your stance was to be patient with that and, you know, not fight the momentum just now. or what would have been 1 or 2 or 3 units, but the bigger project is obviously better priority and certainly more accepting apparently for the town, so. Great news.
Right, so Ron and I will work with you leading up to town meeting, to decide the best way to present that particular.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. I appreciate any input and possibly some of the pictures you had in the application that I could get either your document or copies of those, and then I can put them into the PowerPoint that we put up at town meeting.
I know you always present the articles, but that's not necessarily the way it has to be either. So just a thought that
I think at this one, it might make sense for John to start the presentation, but I think Ron's gonna have to be there to explain exactly what he's doing, why, and answer some questions from the audience.
That would be awesome, if you don't mind. No.
We'll work through that between now and.
That's a good idea. That's April 28th, is it today?
is.
And likewise, let me know what you need from me.
Thank you. Your project is relatively easy. But yeah, same pictures, and we talked about maybe between a mock-up of the monument, and like if it was me, I would figure out a way to put a picture of the common in the background, even if it's a little bit rudimentary, but it's this is where we expect that we're going to put it. I don't know who in the end has to approve that. If you already believe that DPW says it's okay, I don't know who controls that little plot of land. It's not technically in the common. But we might want to see if we could say at town meeting, it's going to be part of the memorial area, which looks so nice now. It seems to me to be the right place to put it.
I think we'll be making space.
We don't want that. We do it with the fields.
I did feel the question, so just be careful about it. There's an underground water system, and there's also an underground lighting for Christmas lights. So I have to make sure that DPW is involved with the installation.
Correct, yeah, I wouldn't say I'd be involved, I just don't know. When you say you want to put something up in a spot, DPW director can bless it, or if it just goes to town staff as well, or whatever.
I'll clarify with,
Yeah.
with this.
Thank you, appreciate that. Very well. Okay.
Once again, thank you very much for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure your time and coming to meeting.
We need to look at the January 2nd meeting minutes and approve them.
That's correct, they haven't been approved yet. I could run it for a really long time.
So moved.
Second that, by golly. Very good.
Okay, any discussion of the minutes any further? All in favor of approving the June 2nd minutes? Good job, Peter. Almost didn't catch that. Very good. Now, I don't see a need to meet again in the short term. Sometimes things happen and some, let's say, as Mitch Cohen implied, so I'm saying maybe about White Cliffs, I don't know, it could happen, but assuming no. And in the next first Thursday in March, I'm out of town. I wasn't gonna, okay, good. But I was gonna ask to put down as a contingent the first Thursday in April. April 3rd. People know they'll be open if we did need to come back again. So we'll put that down just so we have it.
It's already on my calendar.
It's the 3rd, right?
Yep.
So be it. And then I guess just in conclusion, we just talked a little bit with these guys about what the town meeting presentation might look like. And when it comes to the White Cliffs, somewhere along the line, I'll draft some thoughts. Like just in my mind, I'm seeing, obviously telling them what article, whatever number is for the 93,940, and then somehow We expect this to be phase one of a two-part project. We estimate, this is gonna be the cost. CPA will be there to cover it, something like that, and just giving people the overall picture and talking positive. It's a lot of, many people get negative in a hurry. Town hasn't done anything. It was 2017 or whatever, the town hasn't done anything. But there were considerable things done, the roof was fixed. The chimney was demolished from killing people, and, we put it in a place where hopefully we're gonna put it back up. There was work on a dormer, and I read back at some of these things. So we did utilize the funds that have been approved, and we took recommendations from the first consultant study, and some steps were taken. Then obviously the steps of the White Cliffs Committee was created. They did good work. And presented recommendations that didn't get followed. So those things took time. Granted, there was some interruptions in the middle, but somehow reminding people that, we have put in these efforts in, although it's taken a long time, this is the next step forward. We believe preserving the building, it needs to be preserved somehow. We're responsible for preserving it. We need to make sure we're, from a CPA perspective, that we're talking about, this is ultimately a project for a capital improvement of the building. So it's part of preservation and qualifies under CPA, because it's not just maintenance.
I know they think that's important to emphasize, which was emphasized when it was originally purchased, because this is not a financial, you never look at White Cliffs as a dollars and cents project. This is historic preservation. This is the history of my town. Yeah, look at it strictly from a financial perspective, never would have improved in the first place. So that was kind of a focus from the beginning, and
That's true.
that's been the commitment all along, is to.
Right. And it's easy to forget that at the time, it really was an 11th hour situation.
Save the building.
We were looking at this and voting on it into March, if I recall, just to get it to town meeting. And we were clear with the voters that we didn't know what future costs would be, but it was, do you support keeping it or demolishing it? Because that's what the buyer is going to do. And that really was the choice. Resoundingly voted in to save it. But there have been, I don't know. I think that the town put in a lot of effort. It's never the only thing the town needs to do on a year-to-year basis, not to mention look out for citizens' well-being and health and so on. So those are education, and those are always the top priorities.
And COVID was in there too, which
Oh,
slowed
that-
everything down. Yeah, but I'm trying to sort of think of defend,
Yeah.
points of
Sure.
defense.
But that's, as I had said to you, and in part of what I mentioned to the select board was, I'm trying to encourage everyone to think moving forward.
Mhm.
Even among our own committee, it's easy to get grumpy about, should have done this, should have done that. All we can do is go forward.
Well, I think the avenues that we have tried have not necessarily turned out the way we'd hoped to. So you keep going.
Right. It's still part of the process, right?
Still part of the process, yeah.
You learn from that, so.
Right.
Very good. Believe it or not. I don't have anything else to say.
So we move adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
7:10 p.m.